Welcome to this exploration of Ditto and ModelsBuilder. I'll just present myself quickly. My name is Lars Erik Aabech. I've worked with the web since forever. I've worked at my current company for forever. And we've used Umbraco at our company since 2012. We're actually all certified version 5 developers, but we managed to make do using version 7 now. I'm quite happy with that. I'm also proud to have been awarded the MVP award this year. And I'm an avid fan of solid principles and automated testing. At our company, we also do quite a lot of inbound marketing, so we're 15 to 20 people doing copywriting, strategies, stuff like that, and we're a team of 5 developers doing Umbraco sites and custom solutions for customers. So that's that. I want to give a shout out to Matt Brailsford for letting me pester him on Twitter for this presentation. And the presentation is also based on his Ditto demo site. Now, some of you might know me as a guy who advocates ModelsBuilder and my own package and type models using those things. So I'll try to be objective in this presentation, but there might be some stuff that you should feel free to correct me about. How many of you guys have used ModelsBuilder or Ditto? All right. So half the room. That's great. We'll do a quick review of why we are doing this too. So they're both tools for using type models in Umbraco. And the reason we want to do that is because we get back kind of a view model that we should have in MVC, and we're not just working with I-published content all the time. We get more of a domain language to our sites. We do have something where we can use the property names, but it will blow up on you if you're making a typo or something. The other way to go about it is using the get property value of type and an alias, but those statements tend to be quite verbose. So both of these approaches have quite a few risks, in my opinion at least. First thing about type models is that they have intelligence. The IDE will tell you what to type next or even complete your statements. So that's a good addition. And they are compiled and verified, so whenever you do a mistake, the compiler will tell you when you use it in code. And finally, you can extend those models with logic. So you can remove anything, any ifs, any calculations from your views. You put those in your models or your controllers. And you get really clean views with that. And it's basically just more fun. So let's have a quick look at the difference between the two. We'll have, through the presentation, we'll have Ditto on the left and we'll have ModelsBuilder on the right. First thing about Ditto is that it just doesn't care about the published content. It copies what you need over to a POCO, plain old CLR object that you wrote. While on the ModelsBuilder site, we decorate the published content instead, so we kind of wrap it with another class that has your properties. We'll see that in a moment. Whenever you want a model using Ditto, you can ask for it. So you can go content.as some Ditto model, or you can just specify it in your view and you get it for free. ModelsBuilder, on the other hand, always creates your models before it leaves the cache. So whether you use it in a controller or a view, it's always of the type model. Both of them obviously relies on property value converters to give you nice domain value types. And there's been some work, even yesterday, finalizing the stuff we need to use this for all properties and it's going to come in 7.6. For now, we have to use a package by Jeremy Leopold called our Umbraco core property value converters or something. It's a long name, but you'll find it. The difference really starts to show when you want to transform your values. So Ditto comes with a technique called processors, where you can take one value from your content, throw it through some logic to make another value, and that's what's added to your POCO. And to do the same with ModelsBuilder, you'll have to write partial implementations and put your transformation in there and add new properties. And they both really simplify the way you work with your content in your views. The one thing that ModelsBuilder can't do is map from whatever class you have. While Ditto depends on Umbraco, you can still use it to map whatever to a POCO. So you can give it a e-commerce product, for instance. Oh, bug in my animation, I guess. Last thing is that ModelsBuilder models are quite hard to serialize. So the moment you want to go over the wire or make some JSON for them, Ditto gives you that option since you're working with DTOs and POCOs. So let's have a look at the TXT text page, the basic building block of the TXT starter kit. And here we have the Ditto model on the left with some exciting new things. We've got the title attribute here, which says that you should go look for a title property first, otherwise pick the name. And we'll have a look inside that code later. But otherwise, it's going to map directly to each of these properties. While the ModelsBuilder side is a bit more verbose, but you can see it's added all your nice descriptions to the properties, so you get the descriptions in IntelliSense. And that class is a generated class, so it's going to have quite a lot more. We'll discuss the differences. So again, the Ditto side is a pure handwritten POCO, while the ModelsBuilder one is a generated class, so we shouldn't go poke about in there. But both of them can be extended, and we saw the one processor, the title attribute is what's known as a processor in Ditto. But with the ModelsBuilder class, we have to add another partial where we can put all our logic. It also had quite a few other kinds of attributes that it used to inform the Visual Studio tool that you can use with it, and also if you add those attributes in your partials, it won't generate it in a generated class. So it kind of looks at your code and does some decisions on a generation based on that. The ModelsBuilder class inherits a master because the ModelsBuilder structure kind of duplicates all of your document type structures. So the same inheritance that you have with your document types will happen to your generated classes. While in Ditto, you decide yourself when you want to use inheritance to simplify your code. And we have the feature property on the ModelsBuilder side, which didn't appear on the Ditto side because it's useless in the context of the text page view model when we present a text page. But the ModelsBuilder one obviously generates it since it's a copy of the class, the document type, sorry. And what about the views? There's not any big differences here. The first one is that we have to inherit Ditto view when we use Ditto, and it'll automatically map to the text page view model. While on the ModelsBuilder side, we have two options. We can use Umbraco view page, or we can use Umbraco template page. I kind of favor the Umbraco view page approach because I get one train cart less in my models. So you could go with Ditto. You also get the content. So you go model.content and use that as my published content, while you have model view, that is your view model. With ModelsBuilder, the model is actually both a typed class and the iPublished content. So you'll have a few more options when you get IntelliSense on that. But other than that, the views are completely similar with both approaches. So now let's have a look at what we will dive into with code. We've got a big layout for this site, and it starts with a title tag, and there's a lot of common stuff here that we have to figure out how to do with both approaches. We've got the title tag, that's obviously an important one, site name and home link, byline, copyright way down there. And there's a lot of common functionality that we can provide using partial views in all of our views and the layout. And there are some front page partials over there. So without further ado, let's dive into the code. Sorry about the voice, it was something to do with a tavern yesterday. Let's see. So here we are with the layouts in two sites. So I've got a site called Dittoified, which is Matt's demo of Ditto, and I've made the same site and called it ModelsBuilderified, where we've got the ModelsBuilder side of it all. So we'll start diving into the layouts, and we can see the same pattern here with Ditto view and Umbraco view page. In the ModelsBuilder side, I've actually added an interface to a master, so any document that will be shown in layout can be addressed as site content. And for the title tag on the left side here, we get the name of the current page, since we have the iPublished content on the model, and we get the site name from the view. While on the right-hand side, I've accessed the display title thing, which does the same as the title attribute we saw on the Ditto side earlier. And we have an inverse train cart here, where we access the layout from the model. So all the site content has a layout, and on the layout we find the site name. And similarly, we do the same down here for the link, although Ditto has a value type for the link to the home page, while we just have the site URL on the ModelsBuilder side. And of course, we've got the copyright down here. And I made a couple of diagrams to help you get the picture of these two different models. Let's see if I can find the second one. So we'll actually dive into the title one, so I'll sit down still. Again, we have the layout view model on the Ditto side, which has a home link property, which is a structure of a link. And the way it finds this home link is by using another processor, like we saw earlier. And the way it finds the rest of the properties is by using this built-in Ditto processor called Umbraco properties. And if we add recursive equals true to it, it's going to traverse up the tree and find those properties further up, just like we can use the true property, the true argument to get property value. While the home link attribute instructs Ditto, and this is a processor written for this site, so the code resides in the site, goes and finds the ancestor on level 1, and it builds up a link value type of that value again, and finds its name for the title, its URL, and a URL target, which has another processor that is really sweet in my opinion. It checks the URL, and if it starts with a slash, it opens in the same window, otherwise it pops a new window. And that's a nice little trick, and you can reuse that for any URLs. And that's basically the Ditto side of it. On the ModelsBuilder side, we have the iSite content interface, which I've implemented on a master. So let's see. I put those things in different partials, even though they're the same site, the same class, but I like to separate the different interface implementations in different partial files. So it's almost like separate DTOs, yet it's the same class, right? And instead of traversing up the tree for every property, I cache it in a layout field, and using ModelsBuilder, we can actually query the tree by using generic arguments. So we can ask for the home page instead of the thing on level 1. And similarly, we have the logic from the title attribute just implemented in a regular property. And since we've found the layout and cached it in that property, we could implement the layout interface on the home page. And the home page obviously have all these properties in a generated class, except one of them. Let's see. Here we are. So to get that iSite content interface, I could really just go and extract the interface, tell ReSharper what I wanted it to be named, and pick the properties relevant for that model. And I'd get this automatically. The only one I've implemented manually is the site URL, just to get a nicer name for that one in the layout context. So that's the layout. Any questions so far? Great. We'll start looking at some more advanced features now. Let's begin with navigation. The top navigation is called from layout in both sides, obviously. But a small difference here is that with ModelsBuilder, I have to pass in the layout, because there's no processors or magic happen. I have to tell it where it finds its values. And we'll find the views. That's the wrong view, sorry. Here we are. And here we are. And as you probably guessed, the views are quite similar again. On the left-hand side, we have a Ditto view with a navigation model. Right-hand side, we find an interface. They both iterate over menu items. And they check whether the item is active and print out a link with its URL, its target, and its name. And again, I've got a couple of diagrams to show this. Thanks. Let's see. Here we are. And now we start to see some more processors on the Ditto side. So the main view only has a menu items association, and it has a decorator called main nav attribute, where we again find the ancestor on level 1, and we union that with its children where they are visible. And we see the link class reused again with the URL attribute target, and we have a nav link that derives link and adds the isActive property. And again, we see a processor that looks at the current page ID of this context, compares it to the content, and if so, it's gonna be the active link in the menu. On the right-hand side, we again find an interface which is implemented by iLayout, and so the homepage obviously gets that one. It has an association that I implemented directly on homepage, So here we are. And since we're already on the home page, we can just union this with its children of the type iNavigation content. Let's see. So you see it's more or less the same query, but again we can use our domain language on the right-hand side here. And I implemented isVisible just as a wrapper for the published content extension. And the same processor's processing code is placed in a kind of coherent container here. But we don't get the same kind of reusability that we have with Ditto. So that's that. Yeah, navigation content is obviously implemented on a master, so all the content, all the document types get this implemented on. And the last thing I wanted to show you in here was the news overview. Let's see, which one was that? Not a widget. So here we are. And in the base TXT starter kit, the news page just lists out all the news on one page. But in a Dittoified demo, Matt has added paging to the news page, and basically just lists out 2 and 2 news on each page. We'll start with the views again, and obviously they're quite similar again. We iterate over some news, and we use the nice type properties down here, and we have finally a new view called pager, and of course we pass in a model to this one to be able to page, to write out the page numbers. So, and of course it's the same on both sides, except for the model again. Here we are. We'll just go have a look at how it works. So we've got 2 news on the first page and 2 news on the second page. And we'll start with a diagram to get an overview. So that's the ModelsBuilder side. And the Ditto side. And now we start to see that we're creating quite a few processors on the Ditto side, while we're still in kind of a nice little domain-ish language on the right-hand side. We'll dive in here anyway, and have a look at the news processor here, which builds up a page collection of news preview links, which of course derives the link class in the end. But the news processor here is the thing that builds up this page collection of news preview links. And what it does is call its base class again, which is a reusable processor to find news on this site. We'll have a quick look inside. It calls the getNews method on that one, which again finds the home page on the first level, finds its children of news overview, and if it can't find it, returns nothing. Otherwise, it finds the children of that one again of the type news item, orders them descending by the property publish date, and if that one's empty, it sorts it by the create date instead, or if it's the same date, of course. When it's gotten that, it uses standard paging code to build up the current page. There's another, let's see, interesting thing here. It actually gets the current page from the news processor context. And that brings me back to the diagram again, because the way it finds that one is actually a controller. So this is the first time we've hijacked the root to do anything, but this is a standard surface controller, but we use Ditto controller in addition to be able to register a processor context, which we saw again in an attribute on the news processor. So that's the way we can create reusable code to build up paged views. On the ModelsBuilder side, I've made the list of news items its own property, while the paging model is its own class. They're together in the Ditto implementation. And of course, to build up this paged collection, we use a controller on the ModelsBuilder side too. But since we don't have processors, I've put all the paging code in the hijacking controller. So if you don't know what a hijacking controller is, you can derive render MVC controller, call it the same as your document type, and then controller, and the index method will fire on each request for a document type of that kind. And when you use ModelsBuilder, you can create your own index method where you get a render model of that type, and it'll already be your model in the controller. And so here we can just get the current page, we can count them, we can do the same kind of paging code. But to get the news here, I use an implementation on news overview that is a news page, news archive, sorry, where again we do this kind of domainish query instead of these old style magic string queries. And we have the display date, which is a small wrapper around the same logic that we have with these two. Almost, at least. And these are the basic differences between Ditto and ModelsBuilder. And you can basically do the same with both, using two different approaches, more interfaces on the left-hand side, more POCUS and processors on the right-hand side. Few pointers about unit testing. Of course, both of these approaches are quite testable. With Ditto, to test your processors, you probably need to stub up your iPublished content. So you create a few fake iPublished content implementations, or just use a mocking framework like Mock. While on the ModelsBuilder side, you can of course stub the interfaces you build, so you stub quite a lot less. Or you can instantiate your type models and just pass in a stubbed iPublished content instead. With Ditto, you should obviously test all your processors, and with ModelsBuilder, you should test your partial implementations, the logic that you put in your partials. And for both, you probably need to set up some fake Umbraco context. If you don't know how to do that and don't test your code, I really recommend you go have a look at my blog or a video of my talk from Code Garden this summer about testing Umbraco, or go to Anthony's workshop next time it's possible. So now for the million-dollar question. Which of these tools are better? No, just kidding. The million-dollar question is, can I have both? The rabbit there was me 3 weeks ago, but today I'll say, well, yes, of course. And I've prepared a wee demo of that too, so we'll jump back into Visual Studio and change the branch. Let's see. So this repo is also available on GitHub, and there's two branches. The master one has the two different ones, and there's a branch called Can I Has Both, where I've used ModelsBuilder in the Dittoified project. I didn't do all the stuff that I did in the ModelsBuilderified, but you'll see how they can kind of work together in a nice way, using the same principles as we just did. And the way I configured ModelsBuilder this time is by adding this fairly new configuration option called Models Directory, where you can point to another folder. In my sites, it would usually be /models, because we build our sites, but these are websites, so we have to put the stuff in app code. You can also change the namespace and a lot of other stuff. So again, we've got generated classes from ModelsBuilder, and we've got all the view models from Ditto down here. And the ones without generated are the ones I've implemented the stuff in. So we see on a master, we have the home link, which was called layout in the other one, but it makes sense to call it home now. And we can do the same nice little domain language query instead of going up to the upper level. And this property has been reused in quite a few processors. So the get news method that we saw earlier with this large magic string query down here has now been simplified to use the content.home property to find the news overview, and we can return the children of news item, and we can reuse that display date thing that goes to the publish date first and otherwise take the create date. Usages. Here we are. The features has the same nice little query. The home link, obviously. The navigation gets quite clean. And so for anything that you start to make, I'd almost say ugly in the processors here, you should really just move over to ModelsBuilder, so you get this nice little domain language, your domain models, and you use Ditto to separate concerns between the views. And that's basically it. Today, I think you can get quite a lot of value from the nice, clean view models with Ditto, not to mention the magic you get from the processors, but I still really like having the domain language I get with my type models and ModelsBuilder. Few closing words. Since I'm in London, I really wanted to use this mind the gap sign, but what I'm really saying is that you should find your balance between overloading your site with processors till the point where you don't know what a processor does anymore, or you can't find out why a property is this because it's been processed by something way over there. While you could put way too much logic in your partial classes on the ModelsBuilder side too, so try to strike a balance between nice segregated interfaces and processors that give you value and show your intent where you have used it. And that's that. Here are some resources for you. I'll publish this presentation on the GitHub repo and my blog, I guess. And that's that. Any questions? Yeah. Hello.
Is there any difference in performance between the two?
You'll get a microphone, so we get the question recorded. But yeah, I'll repeat it for now. Any difference between with performance between Ditto and ModelsBuilder? Yeah. I'd say there's a slight performance degradation with Ditto since you use all the processors. There's a models factory within Umbraco that instantiates your model class and feeds the published content into that one, so it's more or less nothing extra with the ModelsBuilder way. But I still believe it's nanoseconds. It has no real issues.
So there's no kind of runtime reflection with Ditto? It will just pull that by published content at the end of the day?
There are different approaches depending on what you're mapping. So as long as it's an Umbraco property, it's gonna go use get property value of type, just like ModelsBuilder. But if you're mapping a class instead, it's gonna use reflection to find the right property. Yep.
My question was going to be exactly the same as that.
All right.
I just want to ask a bit more about that. So when you said it has nanoseconds, is that on page load or just on the spin up, like as the website starts?
I believe you can add some more caching stuff. There's a caching attribute in the Ditto example. And I'm not quite sure, you have to correct me, Matt, but when you get the model next time, it will be cached, so it won't map it again. But again, on the ModelsBuilder side, it's already cached in memory. Although it actually creates that model every time you request it, the iPublished content is cached.
Well, just because I've not seen it before, what is app data mode in ModelsBuilder?
Oh,
I've always said.
did we record the question? So what is app data
What is
mode?
the app data model?
So ModelsBuilder have different ways of generating your code. It can do it live in memory, but then you can't use it in Visual Studio. It's just there, so you can write cleaner views. But if you go with app data, you can generate the code to any folder. There's even a secret configuration option that gives you the possibility to generate the models in another assembly. So outside your project and in another project.
I do that one.
Yes.
Yes. I've got you now.
And it's the app data mode that gives you that option. Yep. Anyone else? Everything crystal clear? Everyone's going to go home and build models galore now.
We're using ModelsBuilder at the moment. Is this hybrid approach something you'd recommend with
Well, to be honest, I never worked with Ditto until 3-4 weeks ago, but I've been using type models for 5 years. I had this package that does the exact same thing as ModelsBuilder, but yeah, I'm deprecating that in favor of ModelsBuilder. But I can really start seeing that these POCOs that we can use with Ditto and the magic processors can add value on top of our type models, right? So I'm definitely going to try that out for a couple of projects soon. Yep.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.